Hi, and welcome to a new incubation talk at Dutch Game Garden. My name is Arje Loep. Today we're talking about target audience research with Andreas Tabak of Five Finger Entertainment. Andreas, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Andreas, could you quickly introduce yourself?
I'm Andreas Tabak, I'm from Five Finger Entertainment. We're a two-man studio from Hilversum, and we are busy creating our first game.
All right.
I'm going to talk a little bit about market research. And I would like to start with what do three furries, some goths, Norwegian metalheads, two serial killers, and a lot of dads have in common? They all love to play video games. And it sort of started with IA sort of trying to tell me a little bit to do this road to agency and maybe think about market research. And that set me off to thinking is that I suddenly realized that we know really little about the market. Jan and I were both 39. We both have a family, and we do game design and games purely in our spare time. So even though I love games, I'm really not that deep into it and not that really knowledgeable about like everything that's happening and, you know, like on the forefront of all this sort of stuff. So I thought maybe actually it would be a really good idea to actually do this and just, you know, see what I can discover and learn instead of, you know, relying on my assumptions, what I sort of had. So the idea was, and I think that's the Kickstarter that I think Richie gave me, Arje gave me, was to select 3 games and then deep dive into those games. So in true scientific method, I decided that my children should choose which 3 games I should pick. And as you can see, the 2 on the left are picked by my daughter because it has a cute fox and the other one a cute little character. And the one on the right, Guacamole, is picked by my son. And I ran them through Richie's estimation tool, and I got sort of like an indication of sort of the sales things. And I thought to myself, actually, that's not so bad. I mean, I think there were questions before about like, you know, like the how many things do you want to sell? If it's too little, does it even like has a purpose to be here, to be doing this? But for us, we would be really happy if we would be able to sell 4,000 copies of our game, our first game. That would be like a really good starter. If we would even go towards like 37,000 copies, that would be really, really, really great. But we definitely didn't want to focus on games that sold like 100,000 or 200,000 because they would totally not be relevant to us because we simply can't build such a game because we have limited time. So we have to do with what we have, and we can't put, you know, full-time effort into this and try to match up the level of quality that those games have. So it would be much more casual, much more things. And probably also in, you know, our first game, we will probably publish ourselves and not through a publisher because we're just too inexperienced as a studio. But these numbers also made it a little bit easier to sort of start diving into this idea, okay, who are these people that buy this game or are like this game or are part of the community around these games? So the idea basically is, behind this whole market research, at least from my point of view, is that you start to define what an interesting user is. Just by trying to look at what they do, how they behave online, you can sort of already get an idea of if they can be relevant for the stuff that you're doing. And, you know, like, I mean, the end result is really simple. You just want to infiltrate into their lives and spy on them. Because that's thing. This is also, by the way, showed me like how crazy Facebook is and how much personal information actually you can find about people in general. So I would recommend everybody to check out their privacy settings in Facebook because it's really scary. Okay, so for me it was really like, okay, how do I define then sort of like what is a good person I'm going to dive into and research? For me, the most important thing was he or she must actively engage with the maker, because I think it's really important that that I researched people that interact on social media, because it's social media, so it really has to be social. So Not just people that just like stuff, because that's not really interacting, that's just a simple click, but people that actually invest a few seconds of their life to write a comment or to share a post or in one way or another, like interact with the company or with the makers of the game. And that is sort of my thing. So I just went through the Facebook pages of these companies. I checked their games, I checked the posts, and I just checked mostly, the first thing I checked was comments. So I just clicked on the comments, seen all the comments, and I just went through and you see that, for example, especially with these smaller communities, you see a lot of the same people commenting. So that makes it a lot easier, because then you know already, okay, this is somebody that's really actively engaged with this game, really likes it, or at least it has some sort of a connection to it. And that's really easy. And then it's just a matter of basically going into that page from the user and checking out, do they have an active Facebook feed? Because I need to know what they like. I need to know what engages them. I need to know what music they like. I need to know what their hobbies are. And that's basically, you get then 50% is people that have blocked their profile, so you can't see anything. And then you have people that completely open up everything. And that's like a sort of a little data treasure. You can just open up and pull out all sorts of interesting information and tidbits out. Before this, I really had a lot of only assumptions, and I really didn't know the market so well. So my assumptions were really cliche, like too much Star Wars, mostly male, young, between 21 and 25, a lot of virgins, and weird super nerds with acclaim culture. Like these people that really think like Star Wars number 8 is really terrible, for example. So that was sort of my own assumptions what I went into. But instead, I found really interesting things. So first I focused on this Tanglewood, which is actually a game for the Sega Mega Drive. They actually published it in little cartridges that you can use in the old Sega Mega Drive. There's a really nice little pixel art style, which is really close to what we ourselves do, and it's a puzzle platformer, which is also something that we really like too. They have I would say, small community on Facebook, just like 900 people that like them and 900 that follow them, basically. I don't know if you know the difference between likes and follows, but a like is that you just like the page and that's sort of it. But if you follow a page, you literally see all the updates they have that they do. You see that on your own newsfeed, theoretically. And for Twitter, they have a lot more. They have almost 4,000 followers. So enough people to sort of dive into. That already sort of like, when I looked at Facebook, it already completely shattered my first, not even my first, but one of my presumptions was that, it's a much older age group than I actually thought. It's like 40% is 31, 35, and almost one third is 40, like between 35 and 40 is wrong here on the sheet. So much older target group, and I didn't actually expect that because I thought like it would be much younger. But also, when you look at the interest that they share, is a lot of them really into retro games, which then also explains the reason probably why they're a little bit older, because they love these old games and these old consoles, because it probably takes them a little bit back to their own childhood. And I mean, the way I sort of did this is that I went through these profiles of the people and I picked out sort of the things that I saw coming back the whole time. So I made a very large Excel sheet with all different hobbies that I extracted from these profiles, and then just sort of put them together to get sort of an overall thing of the things that most commonly you can find in this whole group. So rock and metal was like really a lot of people really liked that. We're a big fan of that. Science fiction, but also anime, manga was also a very common thing. So for me, that already gives me a bit of an idea. I mean, it gave me a bit of an idea from, that's interesting. There's this retro feeling going on. One thing I was right about was the male to female ratio, which is a bit sad. It's really 80% male, 20% female. So more women should be more active, I guess, on Facebook, maybe, I don't know. And for Twitter, it was a bit sort of the same, but even there was like 1/3 was even older than 40. I was like, holy shit, so I can still play like games like in a few years' time. And also actually for Twitter, it was really interesting. It was sort of the same thing with retro games, movies, 80s movies, a little bit. It was quite a lot. And it's also like almost 50%. And then cats, of course, because why not? And furry, which actually until that point I had never heard of the term. And I've learned now what a furry is, which has really enriched my life a lot. I put all that data then together and I started looking at this and with other information. I mean, I'm not going to bore you to death with every piece of shit I found in diving into Facebook and Twitter. But is that I could describe them as a supportive, nostalgic gamer. So people that are definitely like in their 30 plus who really enjoyed playing computer games in their when they were young, when they were teenagers, that still love these consoles, that it really takes them back to like this thing. And what I really loved, especially with their community, was they were just really, really nice. Like they were really friendly. They had really nice communication with the publisher, and you know they had a lot of problems with making this game and getting the cartridge finished. But people were just really chill. I mean, I think it was like delayed for a year or something. But everybody on the comments were just really friendly, really supportive, just like totally okay. And I had this feeling, I mean, you know, this idea you get from the last years that like everybody's just trolling on social media. These were completely different. This is a completely different group of people that just were really much more chill, much more relaxed, really nice. So, I mean, then we go to the next game. This is Lightfall. And yeah, they're a bit more interesting. They have a lot of likes on Facebook. But I really quickly discovered that about 2/3 of them are bots. So they bought probably a lot of users so that it looks on their account that it's really a lot. But you go into I mean, how you can see that it's a bot is really simple. You go into the account of one person and it's a random person with a random name. And then there's a picture of food and there's one picture of a travel location. And that's it. And that's like, there was, I don't know, I think like 50% of the profiles I checked out was really like that. I was like, what the hell is this? And then my wife told me that this is bot traffic. She's expert in this sort of stuff. So the breakdown is really simple. It's really interesting. It's a Canadian company that makes Lightfall. And funnily enough, I don't know if it's because of Facebook advertising or anything they did, but a very large portion, about like 80%, of the people that I deep dived into, they were Canadian and in one way or another very proud around the fact that this was a Canadian company making a Canadian game. So, which is really funny. And the other game I did was Guacamelee 2, and there, for example, it's made by a Canadian company, but there it's the other way around. It's 80% Mexicans who absolutely love that game. So it's really, I mean, that's really amazing. Like a couple of Canadians make a game that about Mexicans that Mexicans really love. So they did something really good there. Yeah, the age breakdown for the Facebook for Lightfall was not so much more different. A really large part, just older than I would have expected to be. There was here a very important one is there were 2 serial killers. Absolutely, definitely into it. So that was 2 hobbies of people that live killing people. They look like killers. One guy, it was really weird. He had a profile. He had like 10 friends and probably family members. And he was non-stop posting on his own Facebook, like he making Facebook posts, and then commenting on his own Facebook post, sub-commenting on his Facebook post, and liking the comments that he posted on his Facebook post. Like, dude, serious need of some help there. So, but also here it's movies, science fiction, heavy metal again. There's like no EDM whatsoever, for example, that you can find underneath all these games and the people that love it. So again, it's like it's sort of an interesting thing is that they're again supportive, but in a slightly different way because they're mostly because they're Canadians and they're really proud of it. And what's really cool about what they did is they went for the speedrunner like sort of point of view. So not only did they market it as a puzzle gamer, they actually actively pushed it also the speedrunning community to see that sort of was a sort of a what do you call it, a hook to sell their game on. I mean, their speedrunner community is 6 people.
I think there's actually a bit more people speedrunning, but...
No, but for their game.
Oh, for their game.
No,
okay.
For their game, there's just a leaderboard with like 6 people. That was
right.
it. So
Great stuff.
really not that much. What I sort of set out to do was I wanted to get more of these sort of more smaller niche things, publications, whatever, blogs, and to find these and to have that sort of as a point of view that maybe we can use that later on when we're ready to publish our games to approach these smaller niche sections, then go for the really big publications, which is really difficult and very impossible. So if you find maybe a much smaller, let's call it an influencer or something, that might be a bit more interesting because they can give you the time that you deserve. And if you write to, I don't know, GameSpot or something, the chances of you actually being published or actually trying out your game is, well, really, really slim. So what did it help us? I mean, it discovered that, we already knew this. We knew we need a big enthusiastic community of real people. But we discovered that these people that we researched, we really like them actually. As a community, it's a really nice type of people to have. They're very supportive, very friendly. They're very interested in what you are doing and following. It's not like some sort of whole army of anonymous people just follow what you're doing, but have no interaction with. The other thing we discovered is that we've stopped working on our first game and we went back to an old concept because we think it's easier for us to make it quicker and faster and better also, but it's also better suited for this community because they're very into this retro games and into this pixel style, into this sort of old feeling from the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive and that sort of games. And we already had it laying out. It's like, okay, if we want to target this audience, then actually making a game like that will probably fit better because our game's art style is more towards Guacamelee, which is a bit more hand-drawn and not so retro. So actually, that was actually a big decision for us. Like, okay, we're just going to do another game because this won't fit yet. We have to change our plan. You're never too old to play games, so I said that already. Find a niche. I think with Richie's talk, we also, there's always this question: should you reach really broad, or be ambitious and go for 100,000 sales? But we sort of think that it's better for us at least in the beginning, to really go for a niche and to focus on a very specific target group. And from there sort of start building up a community and grow further from that, then that we immediately are shooting for the stars, because I think that's really difficult anyway, especially I think, and then to be continued because I still have to do a lot of them.
Cool.
So
my first question was going to be, are you developing your game differently now because of this? And then just at the end you said, we completely changed the game that we're making. We're making a different game. So that, to me, it's like a really big wow, which is, I think, great. You're trying to make something that you have a target audience for, or the target audience for that game. So, but it also helped you in other ways. So targeting press/influencers, you now have a better understanding of who you can possibly target that find this interesting, and maybe things like soundtrack. You talked about heavy metal and rock music being all of that? Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all these things that I call them sort of hooks, and before we didn't have them, but now I really have this feeling that we have a lot of things that we could use for promotion or marketing, or because I mean I just show you a little bit of the data, so it's not so much, but there's so much things that you learn about what people like and what people are interested in, and what is really important to people, what they really like. It's also for us. Then maybe later it's something that we can use in a marketing campaign or Facebook ad targeting. I mean, that makes it a lot easier because, like for example, take Facebook targeting. If you would do ad targeting is. Before I would select like a few big publications and that would be it. But now I can just say, okay, I'm going to go for a lot of these niche ones because I know that there's a bigger chance that the people that are in there will be interested in this game, maybe, hopefully. And make me a Ferrari. I need a Ferrari.
No, because we talk about marketing more often here, and we always like to stress, start early, not just do marketing at the end of your development cycle. And I think this is what you're starting really early, and it's not compromising your vision of the game, right? You're still making the game you want to make. You're still confident about that, and not changing or throwing overboard your principles based on this. The mindset is just a little bit different, and the topic that you've chosen is a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly. But it gives us a little bit more also confidence. I think that's very nice. I mean, before we were working on the previous game, and we really weren't that confident. Like, okay, can we find people that like this? But at least with this, we sort of have an idea. Like, okay, there are people that like this sort of stuff, so I guess we could find them. And it's always trying.
Can you show the Excel sheet? Just a quick.
No, actually, I don't have it with me. No,
I would very much like to see
really shitty.
an anonymized version of that Excel sheet.
Yeah, you can send it.
With just to see what kind of work goes into it, because I think this requires a lot more work than we might just be perceiving from this.
Yeah, it's boring.
I hope you found it super interesting. If anybody has a question, this would be the time to step up. Otherwise, I'm going to. Okay.
Hi, I'm Ricardo from Bad Eyes. I just have a little quick question. Do you have any tips? I have no experience at all in doing research for other games and such. And you find all this data, so much man, so much woman. Do you have any starting tips on, are there any pages with bundled stats about games, or how did you start?
I just deep dived into it. No, I mean, I also I have no experience in doing this except for now. But I think the most important thing is that you have to focus on like with Facebook is just relatively easy, with Twitter too. Is you have to make sure you look at actively socially engaged users. And that's the most important thing. And then you just check the profiles, and it's just like there's stuff that they like and that they repost, and it's just I don't think there's like a real formula for it. It's just a lot of grunt work.
Yeah, so you really checked each profile separately and okay, that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that. Make me almost.
Oh, okay, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, that's all. Greetings, I'm Joris Wils. I also did some marketing, target audience research for my own company, but I noticed that the only people who were actively engaging with my competitors were just other competitors. So I want, how do you make sure that the person you're looking at actually engaged with the product and isn't just a friend or some other game developer?
I excluded those. Yeah. No, I mean that I did. I mean, if it was a fellow game developer, I excluded that. But I think if you find a Facebook page of a competitor's game, I think you have that problem less. At least it's not really that I found that was a problem. But if you go to Instagram, for example, and you have a competitor's Instagram page, there it's a big problem because then 50% are game developers, so they're totally not interesting. But with Facebook and Twitter, that was a little bit easy. I didn't run into that problem really. I mean, of course, you have like 1 or 2 or 3 game developers in between, or people that work in a game company. But then it's just a matter of. I mean, I also found people that work at game companies, but then you check what their function, what their role is in the company, and one was like a. How do you call that? Scenario writer, and so I said, okay, well, I can count that. I can do an analysis of that because that's not really a problem that that doesn't really conflict with that. But yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I think I didn't have that problem so much. I mean, but that was really because all these pages that from these games, I think they had really only the game page and not. I didn't check the company Facebook page. No.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it for today's incubation talk at Dutch Game Garden. I would like to thank you for watching and our expert for his insights. Andreas, thank you very much.